Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Board of Regents meetings. I apologize for the delay. We had actually a fantastic, energetic meeting with community leaders this morning, and it truly speaks to part of the reason why we are able to do what we do within higher education, because of that profound commitment that we have from our community leaders and their belief in higher education and what belief they have in the work that you're doing right here at Montana Western. I would like to go ahead and start the meeting by handing the meeting over to Regent Martha Sheehy, who chairs the ARSA committee. Martha?
Thank you, Chair. Let's open up the ARSA agenda. We're going to start with our action items. The first item, item A, is the Regents Professor nomination. You will recall from yesterday that we've already accomplished that item. Items B, C, D, and E are honorary doctorates. We have 4 honorary doctorates proposed. 2 of them are from MSU, and I'm going to turn this over to President Cruzado to give us a short bit of input about our nominees, Bill Pullman and Martin Goldsmith.
I'll be very brief, Madam Chair. And the Faculty Senate of Montana State University have elevated 2 names for consideration to the Board of Regents. We would like to nominate for the highest honor of a public honorary doctorate, Mr. Martin Goldsmith, that perhaps doesn't need much introduction. He's an American radio personality. If I say that, perhaps doesn't mean much, but if I say performance today, it will immediately click. He's very well known for being a classical music host. His program is transmitted with National Public Radio, Sirius XM, and he also has a compelling story to tell our graduates, and that's I think that it will be a wonderful recognition of a spectacular career. He was nominated by Professor Eric Funk from our School of Music, and I just need to tell you that is the most popular course at Montana State University. It fills, those sections fill immediately. Our second nominee is Bill Pullman, also widely recognized, an American actor. If I say Sleepless in Seattle, or most recently the Ballad of Lefty Brown. But Bill actually has a very strong tie back to Montana. He was he taught at Montana State University, and he was very active at our wonderful Shakespeare in the Parks program. So we would love to see them back and to talk to our graduating class. Thank you.
Regents, any questions regarding these 2 nominations? Seeing none, we'll move on to item D, honorary doctorate, Montana Tech, and I will ask Chancellor Backletter to talk about John Mancini.
Members of the board, it's an honor to have John Mancini, CEO of Goldcorp, on our nomination for an honorary doctorate. One of the things that makes John Mancini's career incredibly special, as a longtime leader in industry, he is also quite a scholar. And as you'll see, once it's announced, he has quite a distinguished publication record, and he has been involved in higher education for 25 years. I'd have to look back on that. And so it is a privilege to have John Mancini as our nominee.
Regents, any question about this nomination? Hearing none, we'll move on to item E. This is an honorary doctorate to be awarded at U of M. I will ask President Bodner to speak to this nomination.
So it is my tremendous honor to introduce to this group a person for whom the phrase needs no introduction aptly applies here like no other. I have the honor of nominating Sheila Stearns for our highest honor for this university. And Sheila has had more than half a century of service to this community, to this state, from being the homecoming queen 51 years ago to being the president of the University of Montana through a year of transition. Obviously, her service as commissioner and in various positions throughout the Montana University system. She served with distinction. She served with class. I think it is. I was hopeful that we could have asked to move this agenda item to yesterday to coincide with International Women's Day, because I think about Sheila as one of Montana's most impactful, most influential women leaders, and she is an example for all of us to follow. A great example as a father of 2 daughters. I am proud to have had them have the opportunity to meet President Stearns last fall, and she has been an example for so many, and we are honored to nominate her for this.
Thank you, President. Regents, any comments about this nomination? Problems? Hearing none, we'll move that to action item. Next item is item F, core themes, Helena College. I'll call upon Dr. Seck to introduce this item.
Regent Sheehy, this is actually a fairly simple item. It's a slight adjustment to the core themes as recommended by NWCCU. As you'll recall, Helena College submitted a slight adjustment to their mission statement at the last meeting, and this really should have been with it at the same time, and it wasn't. So this is kind of a catch-up, and Dean Lacey is with us today if there are any questions from the board.
Board members, you've had a chance to review this item. Are there any questions for Dr. Lacey? None? You're free. We'll move on to the next agenda item. This is item G, Level 2 Executive Summary of the program proposals. Dr. Seck, would you introduce these?
Chair Sheehy, thank you, members of the board. I'm going to call Provost Makwa to the podium to very briefly introduce the MSU items.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Sheehy and Deputy Commissioner Seck. So the first Level 2 proposal we have is a request to offer a Bachelor's of Science degree in Environmental Engineering. So this request is both a renaming and an updating of an existing program that's called Bioresources Engineering, which is an option that's currently offered in the Department of Civil Engineering. The program will strengthen MSU's existing graduate environmental engineering program, which consists of a Master's of Science in Environmental Engineering and an Environmental Engineering option in the PhD of Engineering degree. It will provide students a pathway to a growing industry in environmental engineering and consulting, or a pathway to graduate research studies. Having a recognized, accredited degree program will better serve the career goals of our students, enhance student recruitment by increasing visibility of established curriculum content, respond to demand from Montana and regional employers, and create new opportunities for recruiting and retaining faculty with teaching and research expertise in this area. So in essence, we're renaming an existing option, a baccalaureate option, and then updating the curriculum to be more current and meeting industry demands.
Any questions about this item? No. I do want to point out that this is the second time around for the ARSA committee on these, so rest assured that we have already looked at these in some depth. So thank you, Doctor. Next item.
In a similar fashion, this request is also a renaming and updating of an existing program, which is a landscape design option in the Environmental Horticulture Baccalaureate program in the Plant Sciences and Plant Pathology Department at MSU. So we currently have a landscape design option. The faculty have proposed an updated program which will then lead to an accredited program in landscape architecture. Currently, we're one of only 5 states in the country that do not require a professional accredited baccalaureate degree to obtain a landscape architect license. It's anticipated that in the upcoming years, Montana will join the other 45 states that require a licensed baccalaureate program. And so this proposal will enhance our existing horticultural program by adding some classes, by changing the curriculum in some minor ways and some important ways, so that in 5 years we'll be able to have an accredited landscape program. There are no other landscape design programs in the state of Montana.
Any questions? Regent Greenfield.
Thank you, Chair Sheehy. Provost Mockwine, I keep touching on this because I think it's a piece of genius on your campus and your part on the prioritized faculty hiring. And I was just curious how this one new faculty position at the start, in addition to the other 2, if the program is eventually accredited, will fall into that scheme. Will they have to go through the prioritization process for hiring faculty, or will they automatically jump onto the prioritized list?
Right, so that's very perceptive. Initially, we're going to be offering 30 additional credits in this program. Those credits will initially be taught by a non-tenure track faculty who already teaches some other courses in that area at our institution. The revenue that we'll be receiving from both student fees and tuition will pay for that, will more than compensate the salary for that faculty member. As the program grows and as enrollments increase, the plan is to eventually add 2 additional tenure track faculty members. And so the process you mentioned for prioritizing faculty lines will be applied to this program as well. And so with growth in students and sustained growth, we would plan to add additional faculty lines, assuming the prioritization justifies the need.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Marquardt.
Thank you.
Next item is Montana Tech, the University of Montana. Dr. Seck?
Chair Sheehy, I'll ask Provost Abbott to come forward and provide a brief introduction.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm fortunate to have Dean Gerchek here, who is intimately involved in developing this proposal, so I'll let the expert give you the 30-second intro.
Thank you. Welcome.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this is kind of an exciting process for us at Highlands, because what we've done is we've taken a 1-year program that we thought was doing pretty good, and industry came to us and actually said, not good enough. And so it appeared that the rigor that we were doing at that time wasn't producing the machinists that the industry around us wanted us to do. So what we ended up doing is taking our 1-year program and adding a 2nd year to make it an AS degree. Now, with that said, what the student will get when they come out is actually 8 licenses, which is a little bit different than what Flathead has to offer and Helena has to offer, which are, by the way, excellent programs. But for us, what we would like to do is move this forward and hopefully be able to offer it this fall. As far as cost, we probably have maybe 16 or 17 credit adjunct we're going to have to add. But as far as the equipment itself, we have that already.
Any questions? Out of curiosity, how did you learn from industry that you weren't fulfilling the need?
You know, because of our advisory boards, which is always what the schools do so well. So just dealing with our advisory boards, they kind of went to Tony and said, you know, we really kind of need to beef this up a little bit for today's industry needs.
Thank you. Thanks for having that in place and for responding. Any other questions, Regents? Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is Helena College University of Montana, permanently authorizing a certificate in licensed practical nursing.
Madam Chair, Dean Lacey is with us. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, this item is related to the TAC for Healthcare Montana grant efforts to streamline nursing curriculum throughout the state. As part of the statewide effort, our nursing faculty and leadership worked with other statewide nursing curriculum and administrative leaders to redesign the LPN curriculum. And the program was approved by the Commissioner's Office 2 years ago and is currently being implemented. It changed our 4-semester Associate of Applied Science practical nursing program to a 3-semester certificate of practical nursing, and is intended to be more responsive to the employer's needs and to provide more accelerated pathways to the practical nursing career.
Any questions? Thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
The next item is from Western.
Madam Chair, Provost Tadine is with us to introduce this item.
Chair Sheehy and members of the board, I am pleased to bring forward our proposal for academic affairs administrative restructure. The University of Montana has 10 academic departments and 66 full-time faculty. The restructure will address a number of concerns. Concern 1, currently department chairs do not have supervisory authority, evaluation responsibilities, or decision-making related to department budgets, program reviews, assessment plans, and reports. Chairs with authority is common practice at most universities. Concern 2, the current structure with the provost as the only person with supervisory and evaluation responsibilities makes it difficult for all faculty to receive mentoring and ongoing support and feedback. Concern 3, due to the flat academic structure and department chairs with no authority, there are limited opportunities for faculty to acquire and advance leadership responsibilities and skills. During fall semester, the administration and faculty engaged in a shared governance process, and 5 restructure proposals were received and voted on by Faculty Senate. Faculty Senate rejected 4 proposals. 1, Dean of Faculty. 2, 4 academic division chairs with no evaluation authority. 3, Dean of Faculty or division chairs with authority, and 4, 2 divisional deans. Faculty Senate accepted 1 proposal, the Assistant Provost for Assessment and Accreditation. The administration met in early December to review all proposals. Faculty and staff were informed on December 20th that in the administration's view, the restructure of 4 divisions with 4 division chairs with authority would best address the academic affairs administrative concerns. The restructure is effective July 1, 2018. Departments will maintain department status within each division. The 4 divisions are: 1, Division of Business, Technology, Equine Studies, and Health and Human Performance. 2, Division of Education. 3, Division of Humanities and Social Sciences, consisting of English, Fine Arts, and History, Philosophy, and Social Sciences. 4, Division of Mathematics and Natural Sciences, consisting of Mathematics, Biology, and Environmental Sciences. On January 10th, faculty and staff received details of the division chair selection process. Division chairs will be announced on April 23rd. Each division chair will receive $12,000 in compensation over 12 months and 1 course release each semester. We currently have a vacant assistant provost position with $96,000 in the line. A combination of the 4 division chairs, chair stipends, and the cost of course releases totals $76,800. There are enough funds to sustain the restructure plan. The Labor Management Committee, consisting of Faculty Association members and the administration, has met twice to collaboratively draft the restructure language for the collective bargaining agreement. I would like to thank the faculty for their participation at each stage of the restructured shared governance process.
Thank you. Any questions? Regent Lozar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Provost Dean, I had a question regarding the division chairs. Is it the vision of the administration to identify folks within the current personal services here on campus, or is this going to be positions that are opened up broadly, like a traditional, going through a traditional hiring practice?
Regent Lozar and members of the board, it will be an internal process. So at this point, faculty have already either self-nominated or nominated another within their division to move through that process. And now within the next 3 weeks, those individuals, those candidates will give a presentation to that division in terms of why their interest in serving as that division chair. Thank you.
Regent Greenfield.
Thank you. So to clarify then, the associate provost position that is funding this initially will not be rehired, and that will be the new restructuring proposal is to eliminate that position and use those funds permanently for that purpose, correct, of the division chairs?
Regent Greenfield, members of the board, yes, that is the plan. It's an assistant provost, not an associate provost.
Assistant, thank you.
Assistant provost, and that
Pardon me there.
position will then permanently go away, and in place will be these 4 division chairs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Regent Tuss.
Thank you, Regent Sheehy. My question has to do, and I apologize if you've covered this, but in the narrative, I'm a little bit confused about faculty support for this. On the specific proposal that's currently before us that we're going to be voting on, where is the faculty association? Are they supportive? I'm very curious about kind of on this campus what the faculty think about this particular proposal.
So it's faculty senate. So the departments sent forth their person as the representative to faculty senate. Faculty senate then weighed in. So again, there were 5 proposals. They rejected 4 of them, and the only one they gave support to was the assistant provost, which really doesn't address the 3 concerns related to academic affairs administration.
So this is, so if I'm following this correctly, this has not received a majority support from that
It was
group.
the vote on that. The vote on this particular one was 5-5. It was a 5-5 vote within faculty senate.
Okay. You're nodding your heads over here saying it did receive support, but 5-5 would mean?
No, 5-5 is a rejection.
Is a rejection?
Yeah.
So the proposal before us was rejected by that group?
Yes.
But you're advancing it?
Yes, we are, because faculty senate serves as an advisory group to the chancellor.
Okay. Chancellor?
Just one comment about that. The proposal that we're bringing forward for division chairs was actually a sort of revision of a proposal that came forward from the faculty during the shared governance process. The only difference being, so they had a division chairs proposal that we actually thought was better and would suit our needs more than would a dean of faculty, say. And the only difference is in the proposal we're bringing forward is essentially that the division chairs will have clear authority to supervise, to evaluate, to oversee the budget, which has not been the case with department chairs.
Can I have a follow-up on that? I'm just concerned about the unintended consequences of us proceeding with this. Small campus, 5-5 vote, consternation with the faculty about this reorganization. What are your thoughts about how, if we were to approve this, what this looks like, and the morale issues that may or may not be there with faculty associated with this? We rarely get proposals at the board level that aren't vetted in a way that frankly are almost unanimous. You know, they go through all the processes that we have, and by the time it reaches the board level, it's, you know, quote unquote, good to go. And this doesn't
You wanna
appear
start?
to be
Say something,
that
Deb.
type of proposal.
Regent Tuss, members of the board, thank you very much for that question. It's the question that is the elephant in the room, right? So there is some consternation. There has been some consternation with negative votes. There's also a great deal of support for this proposal. And so while we would greatly prefer to have unanimous support for it, we still had to make a decision that we think is in the best interest of the university. One of the things that I've noticed in the 3 years I've been here is that there is a lot, because the chairs do not have any authority because of the language in the collective bargaining agreement, there's a tremendous amount of ambiguity over what they should be doing, who does what when there is a dispute over a schedule or a spending item. And so there's kind of a real difficulty around clarity of responsibility, and I think that this really helps. And the other issue is that we have faculty who want to move into administration or into leadership roles, and without a clear position that gives them authority, that is almost impossible. They've applied, they can't do it, because when the question comes around, well, how did you do with your budget? They are not responsible for their budgets. How did you deal with personnel problems? They're not responsible for those problems. I think this really takes us into a much better structure than we've had.
Regent Johnstone.
Excuse me. I had the same question that Paul did, but I also respect the decision of the leadership of the campus. I think there are times when decisions like this need to be made, and I actually am encouraged by the fact that once again Western has been a little bit innovative in looking at how they do their business and how they manage. So I'm supportive of it based on the support that's coming from the administration, and I assume you've considered the issue of the faculty, and that will be something you have to manage going forward.
Regent Lozar, did you have a question? No. Regent Greenfield.
To either of you who can answer, would there be a detriment to postponing this vote until the May meeting so that more time to deliberate with faculty is possible? I'm just curious if there's an immediate need to vote on this, or if we could take this back another meeting.
Regent Greenfield, members of the board, yes, it's imperative that we move forward now, because we need to be able to put this into place as of July 1, so we can move forward into our next academic year. So that's important. Also, there have been other steps already moving forward in this process. We have people nominated for nominations have come forward for each of the divisions, as well as that collective bargaining committee meeting to already draft collaborative language for the collective bargaining agreement. And so we've been, in that is shared governance at its very best. Part of shared governance isn't that. That everyone's people get to weigh in at every step of the process. This has been a very open deliberation since fall semester. But at the end of the day, a decision needs to be made. And that's, again, thank you. That's why we have the leadership on the campus to help move the institution forward. And remaining as a flat structure in academic affairs will certainly impede our progress of moving forward. We have a great deal of work to do, and we need additional leadership on our campus coming from the faculty in a division chair model that gives them the authority to make the decisions they need to make on behalf of our university and on behalf of our departments and on behalf of our students. Thank you.
Regent Albrecht.
And to clarify, so these division chairs will be the ultimate decision on who will serve in this capacity. How will that occur?
Yeah, so nominations have already been brought forward. Then there's an open session where those individuals present to their colleagues of why they are interested in the position. Then each of those candidates interview with me. Also, faculty have an opportunity to send forth their their feedback on the candidates. And then I meet with the chancellor and we review all the information, just like you would do in a search when you're bringing a faculty, 3 candidates to a campus, your finalists, and making your decisions. Yeah, and that's been announced way in advance. People have been a part of that process.
That's encouraging to me because despite the five to five, it allows faculty continued voice and leadership in the process.
Yes.
And I can appreciate that these are difficult decisions as you move forward. Change is difficult, but it is your role as chancellor to set the stage, to create the structure that's needed in order to move forward. So because I see that opportunity for faculty to continue to be engaged in this process in really critical leadership roles, I would be supportive of this.
Thank you.
Anything else? No? No other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you, members of the board.
Before we leave the topic G, I'd like to call upon Dr. Seck to report on what the CAOs have been talking about with respect to program review.
Chair Sheehy, members of the board, I'm very pleased to report the CAOs and I had an excellent meeting on Wednesday afternoon. We met from 3 to 5 here at Western, and we discussed a number of topics. I have 3 updates for you that are very encouraging. One is, since the new program planning and approval process went into place, I think we've seen some significant results. You all know about the collaboration that's taken place with the Master of Occupational Therapy between the University of Montana and MSU Billings, but we did an analysis of how many programs, including, assuming the level 2s are approved today, as compared to how many programs have been placed on moratorium or termination this year. And the numbers are 8. There have been, assuming the programs today are approved, there will be 8 level 2 programs approved so far this year in level 2, and 15 programs placed on moratorium or terminated system-wide this year. So you may recall the network was down, so we couldn't access our spreadsheet where we track this information, but you may recall a few years ago, it was more like 40 new programs approved and 2 placed on moratorium or termination. So I think it's a result of this new planning process, that the collaboration and the coordination that's taken place in this time of scarce resources. The chief academic officers also spent a good deal of time talking about a post-program review process, and that's something that this board has been talking about and has mentioned the last couple of meetings. And I just want to give a shout out to Mr. Joe Teal, who is our new Director of Academic Policy and Research for the system. He's done a fabulous job working with the CAOs to come up with a framework. We're still tweaking it, we're still working through it, and we want to have conversations. But I think we're going to be in a position by the May meeting up in Havre to present something as a concept. And so I left that meeting just feeling so encouraged about that. And then the other big topic that we discussed was Common Course numbering. And as you know, Montana is very fortunate to have Common Course numbering. We're one of the few states in the nation that has Common Course numbering. It's now approaching 10 years old, and with that, it has some it has experienced some atrophy, as President Cruzado might expand on. But the CAOs and I came to an agreement that this is our #1 priority, and we are going to be focused on this every month. I convene the CAOs every monthly for a phone call, and then we meet regularly in person. This is our #1 goal, and we came to the agreement that we're going to have this thing resolved and totally functional by May of 2019. So, but I think we're going to be making a lot of progress each month as we go forward. So I left that meeting just feeling incredibly excited about the future.
Thank you. Regent Lozar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And John, thank you for the update. This is a conversation we've been having among the board and among the committee as it relates to our overall program inventory in the system and conversations about program review part of the process. And you guys did a great presentation in November, and I think the board learned a lot. And we're sort of trying to figure out, like we've done over the last 3 years, what parts in the planning process, approval process can be tweaked to ensure that the programs that are coming through the board are reaching their intended outcomes. And so excited to see sort of this progress that you're making. And I would ask that that as you and Joe and others are working on this plan, that we're involved in the process, so that come May, it's not here's the plan, so that we've got the opportunity to sort of weigh in, and I think that's going to save us time to deploy a new part of the process. So that's just a comment. In terms of the inventory, one of the things we've seen over the years is, and like you mentioned from maybe 3 years ago, we had 40 new programs and 2 in moratorium. What would you attribute this new assessment, more recent assessment of, what would you say, 15 in moratorium and potentially, if we prove these, 8? Like what has changed in the process at the campus level that's kind of flipped those ratios?
I honestly think it's the job the campus CAOs are doing system-wide, and the communication that's taken place across the system, and also the work that we've done the last couple of years in connecting to the demands in the state for these particular programs. And so the communication has exploded. When I first took this job, it was always interesting. A day or two before the board meeting, I would spend most of my time refereeing fights among the different campuses. And Dr. Moisey knows that feeling back there. But in the last year, 2 years since we implemented this new process, I have not had to referee a single fight, a single argument. I mean, these folks are working together unlike anything that I think most systems across the country would be amazed at the level of collaboration and coordination that we have in the system right now. So the new process that you all approved has created that transparency, has created that communication that's happening.
And a follow-up to that in terms of this increased collaboration that's obviously working, how does moratoriums fit into that? Are campus CEOs talking to each other about what should we together put on moratorium, or how does that work?
Chair Sheehy, Regent Lozar, it fits into the work that's going on the campuses. Every single campus in this system is involved in some level of academic program planning and prioritization. So I think what you're seeing, those moratoriums, are a result of that work that's taken place on each of the campuses.
Chair Albrecht.
Thank you, Regent Sheehy. So the Common Course numbering, you mentioned that there's been some atrophy, and I continue to hear concerns about the lack of transferability of credits across the system. And I know that it is our ultimate goal, and it takes continued diligence to ensure that transferability continues. Can you speak to how we are going to keep our eye on the prize in ensuring that we don't have campuses creating courses that are not within, that are not transferable, et cetera, to ensure that we are at least having some oversight to ensure that we can continue focusing on the Common Course numbering and the transferability with a student-centered focus?
Madam Chair, Regent Albrecht, absolutely. I would say 2 answers to that question. First answer is we hired Joe Teal, and he's on this. He wowed all the chief academic officers yesterday or on Wednesday. Second answer is the chief academic officers, each of them raised their hands and said, we're on board with this. And if a campus isn't accepting a course that's been Common Course numbered, we want to know about it. and communicate it to the deputy commissioner so that we can call the campus and say, no, you can't do that. You have to accept this. This course has gone through Common Course numbering. So I think to answer your question is we're developing a matrix. Thanks to the great work of Elizabeth Turnus and her partnership with MSU, we put together a database. So we now, instead of having all of the Common Course courses on a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet, now it's on a professional database, and we can track it, and we can track the alignment of the outcomes. You bet.
Dr. Seck, I want to thank you for your work on this. Appreciate the update. ARSA has also been meeting in work session and very supportive of all the things that you just mentioned. In particular, we particularly discussed the ratio between programs that we approve and the moratoriums in a way to balance our system. And we are very interested on a consensus basis in reviewing things down the line. We now have a process in place that is somewhat static as far as we only look at it at the outset. And we would like to look back, not as far as a condition, but to take a look back after 2 or 3 years that the program has been instituted and see if it's met the expectations and the reasons that we approved it. So I heard that in your remarks that is also something that the CAOs are looking at.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions about this? Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the American Indian and Minority Achievement Council recommendations.
We have Director McLean with us today. Thank you.
Welcome, Director McLean.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Thank you, Chancellor, for having us. It's good to be home. Members of the board, you have before you the AMA recommendation action plans. And if you'll recall, in November, you directed me to travel to the campuses to visit with teams there around how they would implement these recommendations. And in January, I did so. And I'd like to signal a great big thank you to all of the folks who came to the tables all across the state, the folks here and the folks here, who made these recommendations happen. They came with open hearts and open minds on behalf of all of the students that we all get to serve. When I came before you in November, I mentioned the fact that we had experienced fall to fall a 6% growth in American Indian student enrollment. Additionally, it's important for you to know that while it is small, the system did experience a 1% growth in American Indian student retention. And when I visited Montana State University, after I had met with their team, Rhonda Russell chased me down and she said, I want to tell you our American Indian student applications are up 11.2% over the same time last year. So we have momentum. And I believe that with your action on these recommendations today, you are going to give American Indian student success in the Montana University system even more momentum. So with that, I will open it up to you for any questions or comments that you may have.
Excellent work, Director McLean, and thank you for going in person to all of these places. I know that it makes a huge difference in the outcome, which is wonderful. Any questions? Regent Nystuen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So it's 11.2% increase?
In American Indian student applications, yes.
That's very laudable and notable. How will we work to make sure we retain them? It's one thing to get them on board, but how do we see that there's a persistence level through to success?
Absolutely, Regent Nystuen. I think what you have in here are plans that will get us to a better place on American Indian student retention, because it is not okay just to get them in the door and then let them fall to their own devices. We need to make sure that we have mechanisms in place from the second they set foot on our campuses until the second they graduate successfully. And I think that we have in here structures for the first time ever in a strategic way across all of our institutions that are designed to meet the needs of the students where they are at. And And I cannot commend our campuses enough for coming to a place where they would identify specific point people to make sure that our students don't fall through the cracks. And I think that, at the end of the day, is what will get us to a better place for every single American Indian student that we serve.
Regent Lozar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I share the same question that Bob had in terms of retention, persistence, getting into completion, and having been a part of the AMA Council, some of the conversations and these recommendations in front of us. This is round one, and I think I've mentioned it before. This is round one. If you look at it, we're looking at point of contacts. We're looking at professional development. Those are and some data. So those are some very basic levers in making change in what we saw yesterday and in the underserved categories in performance funding, which were low. So I'm hopeful. I'm supportive of these recommendations, but I'm hopeful that with these structures and these points of contacts, that indeed there's conversations and changes that are being made on campuses, very specifically. With investment of time and energy and money to ensure that these retention rates are improving. It's not enough for us to increase matriculation of American Indian students. It's something that we should tout, and it's great, and it's a really good start, but our ultimate goal is getting them through higher education and back into Montana communities to be able to have impact. And so I'm hopeful that this is step A here, and that as the AMA Council continues to work on sort of best practices, strategies, and whatnot, that that Director McLean will come back to the board and say, here are some of the things that we found to have success, and this is how we want to deploy these across the system to increase those rates.
Thank you, Regent Lozar. I hear you loudly and clearly, and the AMA Council will continue to work with campuses as they roll out these recommendations over the course of the next year. There are a couple of other pieces that really make this conversation magical. One is that we're rolling out these recommendations at the same time that we're rolling out the Complete College Montana student completion strategies, and there's an equity component built into those strategies. And I think that if we do those successfully, and if we provide those supports for the faculty and staff on our campuses that will be necessary to ensure successful implementation, therein lies, I think, a great deal of magic in getting our students to a better place.
Regent Johnstone.
Thanks, Martha. Maybe you covered this, Angela, and I just missed it, but have we reached out across the country to see whether there are other examples of success relative to this issue? This is not unique to Montana. And if we have, has that influenced our recommendations? If we've not, do we intend to as we move forward?
Regent Johnstone, members of the board, absolutely. And part of the Complete College America conversation is built around how the college completion strategies impact some of our underrepresented students the most. And so we have that repository of information. We have a repository of information coming to us as a system from NASH, who has an equity component built in to their efforts. And then, of course, we have all of the expertise of all of the folks from our AMA Council coming around the table.
Well, if I could, a comment and then perhaps another question. I've met with some people that are former colleagues and associates of mine in Minneapolis, one of whom has made a major funding gift to St. Thomas University to really address significant issues with respect to this particular population group, and very innovative and different approaches, I think. And I'm wondering whether we have looked for sources, financial resources external to the Board of Regents to partner with to assist us in this. And if not, again, can we or would we?
Thank you, Regent Johnstone. And I just checked my email just to see if, before I got up to the podium, if that we might have received word on a grant. We did apply for a Lumina Foundation's grant around racial justice and equity that we believe would get us to a better place as a system in strategic implementation of these, as well as the complete College Montana game-changing strategies. And if I could just back up and speak to one other thing that we took completely from another state, and that is we borrowed from Dartmouth, at the suggestion of Regent Lozar, the notion of our Native American scholars. And so we have those across our system. And so we are looking to other places and best practices all across the country.
Regent Greenfield.
Thank you, Chair Sheehy. Director McLean, thank you for a wonderful update on this. I know we've been hearing about this for the past few meetings, and I consider it the most important item on our ARSA agenda today. Going through and spending a lot of time on these, looking through all the campus proposals, a lot of the material seems great. In fact, most of it seems great. There were a couple areas where I felt like maybe we weren't meeting what the expectations set by the AMA Council might be. From my understanding, the AMA Council has not yet had an opportunity to review these specific action plans. My humble request is that they, when time permits, to do so and to report back and make sure that these plans are adequate to the AMA Council's initial intentions for creating these recommendations. And I would be curious to hear back from the AMA Council on these, in addition to the future steps that are going to be taken. As Regent Lozar said, I view this as step one, and I want to make sure that we get step one correct. So, thank you.
Thank you, Regent Greenfield, and that will be the highest priority of the council going forward for the next year.
Regent Lozar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've had a member of the Tribal College Presidents Association join our meetings for about a year now, and that was purposeful because we wanted to ensure that we're having this continued structural integration with at least conversations of what's working, and particularly as it relates to American Indian students. So our tribal college partners are really, really important. Angela, can you speak to sort of how we've plugged in with the tribal colleges, and maybe to Bill's point, how we've looked at some of the things that have worked with student success at tribal colleges, and how that might inform sort of what the MUS does with our Indian students?
Thank you, Regent Lozar, members of the board. I think that's a great question. One of the things that I did in my first couple months of taking this post was we traveled to each of the tribal colleges and had lengthy visits with each of the tribal college presidents, and sometimes faculty and staff and students therein, and they were great and very productive visits. Recently, we are working specifically on an articulation effort with Salish Kootenai College, and that was one of the first undertakings of the ever great Joe Teal, and we are moving that process forward. And I would tell you that the conversation that you had just before I came to this podium directly relates to the success of that conversation. And as we move through our common course numbering system and the agreed outcomes, we're going to see to a greater degree more successful transferability of our tribal college credits coming in on behalf of the students that we serve. I just traveled to Pablo last Friday and worked with them on a STEM grant to grow opportunities for students in Indian country to participate in science fairs. Additionally, we continue to make our way across the state, having conversations around everything from how we can best serve our American Indian students in the schools that they attend, through making sure that we have a seamless pipeline of highly trained educators in Indian country to make sure that they don't have heavy turnover. And so we're working with that, and that directly fits with the recruitment and retention task force work that this board charged me with just a couple of years ago. So we're working on that. I traveled this last fall to Northern Cheyenne, and we had a good conversation with the folks from their circle of schools around how we can make sure as a system, in partnership and in concert with our K-12 partners, that at the end of the day there is that seamless pipeline of educators, because they have heavy turnover, and if they do get a teacher or an administrator, oftentimes they don't stay for very long, and that oftentimes, as you probably understand best, leads to these significant achievement gaps and opportunity gaps, because it seems that just as they are getting something started and something institutionalized into practice, the rug is pulled out from underneath these students and their communities because they have an inability to retain effective administrators and properly licensed teachers. And so the work that you have me doing on both ends of the bookcase, I think directly relates to implementing the practices that we believe as a council will get us to a better place, and ultimately making sure that we grow our partnerships in Indian country with our tribal colleges. I attended the Advisory Council of Macy just this last week. I'll be the keynote speaker for the Montana Indian Education Association, and we continue to grow and strengthen those relationships as a system. And I cannot thank you as a board enough for making sure that the tribal college leaders have a seat at our table and converse with us routinely. I just want to also commend Dr. Seck for making sure that the tribal college presidents had a seat at the table when it came to the Complete College Montana Summit that we had at the University of Montana in October. And so there's a lot of great things happening that I don't think have ever happened before, Regent Lozar, in our system. I've taken a good look at all of the documents from Macy, from MIEA, spent a lot of time with Norma Bixby, and we are really at a place that I don't think we've ever been before as a Montana University system. And I think it's very exciting, but I would just ask, and I hear what I think I hear you asking from me and perhaps your fellow board members, is continued courage and bravery in going forward and considering how we can do more with what we have. And I can tell you without failure of being an error that I will give you my solid commitment every single day to getting these students to a better place.
Thank you, Director McLean. I think you've heard us loud and clear, and you've acted on that, so continue that good work. This ends our action agenda items, and I am going to call an audible and return the meeting to Chair Albrecht, and we will return to our information ARSA items in a bit.
Thank you. We have one of our regents who has to depart, and this is his last meeting, sadly for us, Regent Bill Johnstone. What we would like to do is go ahead and address the action items in the committees that have action items. And so what I would like to do, while we still have Regent Johnstone with us, is to go ahead and address these action items. And I would like to go ahead and begin with item B. Let's see here. So we will stay on the ARSA committee, and I would like to start with item B, which is the honorary doctorate for Montana State University. That would be for Bill Pullman. I would entertain a motion to approve the nomination for honorary doctorate of Bill Pullman.
So moved.
Moved by Regent Sheehy. Any discussion from members of the board? From the campuses? Any public comment? Seeing no further comment, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Item C, honorary doctorate for MSU, the nomination of Mr. Martin Goldsmith. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion made by Regent Nystuen. Any discussion from members of the board? Campuses? Any public comment? Seeing no further comment, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item D, honorary doctorate, Montana Tech has nominated Mr. John Mansanti. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Regent Greenfield has made the motion. Any discussion from members of the board? Campuses? Any public comment? Seeing no further comment, I will call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Item E, honorary doctorate. University of Montana has nominated Dr. Sheila Stearns. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion made by Regent Tuss. Any discussion from members of the board? Campuses? Any public comment? Seeing no further comment, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Item F, core themes at Helena College. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion made by Regent Sheehy. Any discussion from members of the board? Campuses? Any public comment? Seeing no further comment, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item G, Level 2 Executive Summary. I'll entertain a motion.
Chair Albrecht, can we go item by item on these?
On the Level 2?
Perhaps what we could do, if you're concerned about the Western proposal, we could segregate that out. Is that what your intention was?
I just wasn't sure if there would be or not. I just wanted to see if.
Madam Chair, I would suggest if anyone would like to pull one of the individual items out, that's certainly within their purview, and they can ask for that. Otherwise, I would suggest you take them as a group.
If it's appropriate, I would request that we segregate out the restructure, the academic restructuring of UM Western
Okay.
from the group.
We will pull that out, and then I will go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the following items: Montana State University Bachelor of Science degree in Environmental Engineering, Montana State University Bozeman Bachelor of Science in Landscape Architecture, Montana Tech AAS Precision Machining Technology Program, Helena College authorization of a certificate in licensed practical nursing. Those items.
So moved.
Motion made by Regent Sheehy. Any discussion from members of the board? Campuses. Any public comment? Seeing no further comment, I'll call for the vote. All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We'll return.
Yeah, same item number.
We return, same item. Pulling out University of Montana Western, specifically the restructure of the University of Montana Western Academic Affairs.
So moved.
Motion made by Regent Lozar. Any further discussion from members of the board? Regent Greenfield.
Thank you. I've been on the fence a little bit about this one since the ARSA call, and I think the ARSA members will note that. As a product of shared governance myself, I understand that shared governance isn't about getting everything you want, and it's more about shared responsibility. Thinking this over for a long time, I believe I am in favor of the proposal. I understand that that might not be to the benefit of every faculty member, or might not be perceived to be in the benefit of every faculty member, but I ultimately think that this is probably the best way forward for the campus. And if there are dissenting opinions from the audience, I'm open to hearing those, but at this point I am supportive. I just wanted to pull this item out and have a little bit of a different discussion about this because it is an unusual case on our ARSA agenda.
Thank you, Regent Greenfield. Any further discussion from members of the board? Regent Tuss?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I too am concerned about this. For all of the reasons that we've already discussed, I don't think we need to rehash them. My sense is this is going to be an item that when we vote on it, we'll pass. But I'm concerned enough about this that I would request that Western give us an update on this. I want to know how things are going. And I don't know what the right period of time is, maybe a year from now. I sure want to know whether or not this restructuring is working, if it needs to be tweaked, what the faculty think about this once it's implemented, because sometimes there's fears and concerns that don't end up being realized. But this just has an oddity to it that I'm a little concerned with.
Thank you, Regent Tuss. And I would actually concur with that. I would agree that I would like to hear back Regent Sheehy and then Chancellor Weatherby.
I'm supportive of this because, frankly, I've been on this campus for the last 2 days, and it has given me a great deal of confidence that this group will work together. And I think that this proposal falls smack dab into Regent Johnstone's advice yesterday that you deliberate and then you got to decide. So I'm supportive of this. I agree with the update, but I think you have to do the work. Thank you.
Chancellor Weatherby?
Thank you for all your comments. And I just want to say that you absolutely have our commitment to review this on a regular basis with the faculty. It is put forward with the difficulty that you mentioned, but I truly believe, and I know the provost and I and many people on the campus, many faculty, believe that we have to move forward in some direction. Our initial proposal was a dean of faculty. We were talking about it too informally for a couple of years. And as a result of then listening to the faculty and saying, you're right, let's go back to the table for another semester and look at what will best serve the campus, we came to this conclusion. I think some morale issues, frankly, on our campus are being caused by a lack of clarity about the academic structure because of what I talked about earlier, that responsibility isn't clear. Some people take it on and they lead and they do exactly what you would expect leaders to do. And others aren't sure where they are. And so I really have great confidence that this will be positive for our campus. But that said, it is a new structure, and we will be reviewing it and going back to the table on a regular basis to make it work as well as it possibly can for the entire Western community. So I appreciate the comments, and thank you. You have our commitment.
Any further discussion from members of the board? Any further discussion from the campuses? Any public comment? Seeing no further comment, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
No.
Motion passes. Let's see here. Okay, we are moving on.
AMA Council work plan.
AMA Council Work Plan, item, where are we at here? Item H. Okay. I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Regent Lozar. Any discussion from members of the board?
Yes, Madam Chair. I only have one comment, and that is gratitude for all the work that AMO Council has put into this for the last 3 years. And all the work of Ochi and under Clay's leadership, making this a priority, and all those folks that met on campus to get us to this point. I'm very happy about where we're going.
Thank you, Regent Lozar. And I will take the prerogative of commenting on the fact that in serving on this board for 5 years, that I have seen some of the most progress made since we've had new leadership under Director McLean, and I am very encouraged and grateful for her work in leading this critical initiative that we have established as a priority. Any further discussion from members of the board? Campuses. Any public comment? Seeing no further comment, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We'll now move on to the Budget Committee. There are no action items in the two-year committee. We'll begin with the consent agenda. Items A through E. I got this, Commissioner. Okay, items A through O. Consent agenda items A through O. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion made by Regent Johnstone. Any discussion from members of the board? Campuses. Any public comment? Seeing no further comment, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. I'll move to the action items, beginning with action item A, request for authorization to increase spending authority for Dobby Lambert Field Sports Facility at MSU Bozeman. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion made by Regent Sheehy. Any discussion from members of the board? From the campuses? Any public comment? Seeing no further comment, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Action item B, request for authorization to demolish the Academic Support Center at MSU Billings.
So moved.
Motion made by Regent Johnstone. Any discussion from members of the board? Campuses. Any public comment? Seeing no further comment, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item C, request for authorization to replace the Brick Breeden Fieldhouse scoreboard at MSU. Motion made by Regent Nicetune. Any discussion from members of the board? Campuses. Any public comment? Seeing no further comment, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item D, request for authorization to lease athletic fields to MSU Northern Foundation for Phase 1 of Athletic Field Improvement Project.
So moved.
Motion made by Regent Greenfield. Discussion from members of the board. Regent Lozar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Similar to the Western restructure of administration, I would love for Chancellor Kegel to give us a report on this as he makes progress, particularly as it relates to the overall funding strategy for or fundraising for the phases 2 and 3.
Thank you. Any further discussion from members of the board? Further discussion from the campuses? Any public comment? Seeing no further comment, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Same sign. Motion passes. Did we do E yesterday?
I bumbled through E yesterday.
Okay, that's right. Okay. And we celebrate the hiring yesterday of Chancellor Edelman. Thank you. Okay. That actually completes, unless you would have some input here. I don't mean to silence you. That completes our action items. And at this moment, I would like to turn the floor over to Regent Johnstone as he makes his way out of here, and we will sadly miss you. Regent Johnstone.
Well, thank you, Chair Albrecht. And first of all, I apologize for interrupting the meeting. Unfortunately, neither the weather nor Delta Airlines is accommodating the Board of Regents schedule, so I'm going to have to leave a little bit early. So I'd just like to make a few brief comments. My decision to resign was a very difficult one, and while it was the right one for personal and family reasons, as you can tell by my voice, I regret it. I will miss this board and what you do and all the people involved very deeply, and I certainly very much appreciate the kind and generous, perhaps overly generous and kind comments that were made last night by everybody. As I said last night, I've had the very good fortune, perhaps luck, to be associated with many, many quality organizations, profit, non-for-profit, public and private, over nearly 50 years of a professional career. And I can say without reservation that none of those associations has been more meaningful and fulfilling than the 4 years I've spent with you on the Board of Regents. As a lawyer and advisor to businesses, governments, manager of an international law firm, and a business executive, I have seen and I know the value and importance of education to our nation's businesses, economy, and prosperity. But most critically, to sustaining and improving our democratic form of government through an informed and engaged citizenry. And I think we would all agree that that maybe is more critical today than it's been in many, many years. Do we need to improve and evolve our education systems, primary, secondary, and higher, to better serve students and our economy and our society? Of course we do. That was true in 1800, it was true in 1900, it was true in 2000, and it's likely to be true 50 and 100 years from now. But to suggest that public education and public higher education is not necessary and is not contributing enormous value to our nation is just plain wrong and contrary to the learning and wisdom of the human experience over hundreds, if not thousands of years. The challenges in front of higher education generally, and in Montana in particular, are well known. We talk about them all the time. But they're not insurmountable. They will require continued commitment on the part of all, particularly our government leaders and this board. And most importantly, they will require a willingness and courage to challenge conventional wisdom and legacy practices and policies, and to make necessary changes on the part of this board and the part of the faculty, staff, and administrators of our campuses. The values of higher education are timeless and I think immutable, but the ways and means of delivering those values in education should be subject to constant rigorous debate and change as required by different circumstances and realities. This won't come as a surprise. I also encourage you to move forward with a sense of urgency. Deliberation and collaboration are important and are to be respected, but we need to make decisions and act and not allow discussion to become an excuse for failure to make the important changes that will be required. The public and students will not and should not tolerate delay, and our private and public sector competition will take advantage of it. So I remain very optimistic about the future of higher education in Montana. We've been a leader among our peers in promoting affordability and access and facilitating innovation and preparing and supporting students for success. I'm confident you will continue to do so. I wish you all the very best. And the only parting comment, I will miss being a part of it. So thank you all so very much for everything. Thanks.
Thank you.
Regent Johnstone, before you make your way out of here, we have two meaningful parting gifts from our two university presidents.
The only other thing, I'm reminded by Amy that I have to return my iPad.
Oh, wow.
Ain't nothing free in the US.
Well, that's good. Having served in the Army, you never get off a post until you've checked off that you've returned everything. So good job, Amy. Look, we had, I think, a great reception and many kind and very deserved compliments on Regent Johnstone as a person and to his service to the board were shared. I won't reiterate those, but I did want to present on behalf of the University of Montana a picture. We are proud of our main hall, but in particular, this picture shows main hall at dusk with lights on it. And although Regent Johnstone is a true Bobcat, he is a citizen of this system. His son Anthony is a incredible member of our faculty. But what I love about this picture is as many of you will know, Lux Veritas is the motto of the University of Montana, and the light on Main Hall, I think, signifies exactly the sentiment that Regent Johnstone just shared, and the importance of our public institutions of higher education for this state, the opportunity that they provide, the social mobility that they provide, the economic development that they provide, and I think most importantly, the importance for the continuance and success of this republic. Our founders, I believe, rightfully said that an educated citizenry is the bulwark of the republic, and you've committed your time, your talents to ensuring that we fulfill that mission as effectively as we can. And on behalf of the University of Montana, I want to thank you, Regent Johnstone.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, members of the board, my dear Regent Johnstone, first of all, I want a copy of your remarks. I think that you have distilled the essence of what we do and our mission and our passion for higher education in a very eloquent way. And you leave us with a very clear charge, which we intend to follow. Many times you have said that education is in your DNA. And we take that very seriously at Montana State University. Your family has been a very important part of our history. You know, I stand here as the 12th president of Montana State University. In 125 years, this is a very small and intimate group. And your father was one of those servants. So I want to thank you in that sense for all your father did for us. But what a joy it will be for him today to see that you have earned your merits in your own right, with a distinguished career in law, in business, but more importantly, in public service, and doing that with distinction. So I'm very proud to call you a Bobcat,
class of 1966, Mr. William Johnstone. And I just want to say, as I said yesterday, on behalf of more than 110,000 alumni, our faculty, our incredible students, and the people of the state of Montana, we have a debt of gratitude with you, Bill. Thank you so much for all you have done for us. Go Cats.
Thank you all very much appreciated. And, I will miss you. There were comments made that suggested that I was leaving, and I'm not dying. I'm not I'll still be around. I won't have my Regents email, I guess, with me, but I will have an email and a telephone number. And I intend to stay in touch and follow what you do and look forward to it. So thanks very much again. Take care. Thanks all. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you all for the opportunity to express our profound appreciation for Regent Johnstone. We all know as members of the board that this truly is a privilege for us to serve at such a level that has the opportunity to make an impact for years to come. And Regent Johnstone has been such a fine example of that service. At this point, I would like to turn the meeting back over to Regent Sheehy to finish, the academic research and student affairs portion of the committee meeting covering the information items. Chair Sheehy.
Thank you, Chair Albrecht. Although Bill is gone, I do want to say that he leaves such a hole in our board in some ways. He's been such an integral part, but I'm always struck by the fact that Bill talks about luck and its role in his life. And I think of that proverb, luck favors the prepared mind. There is no mind better prepared for pretty much anything than Bill's, but I think in the last couple of days we've also seen his carefully concealed heart, which is big and bleeding. So this has been a really great meeting to have with Bill. We're back on the ARSA information items. The first item in information is the National Association of System Heads, TS3 High Impact Practices Initiative Overview. Dr. Seck?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. As you may know, Montana was one of 4 states selected to receive this grant to promote high-impact practices focused on student success. So I'm going to call Mr. Rose to the podium, and I'll ask Mr. Rose and his team if they'll be succinct and help us try and make up a little time. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner Seck. Madam Chair, members of the board, I'd like to invite Dr. Single, Dr. Sherwin, and Dr. Pasick to come join me at the table. So as Deputy Commissioner Seck mentioned, we were one of 4 states to receive $150,000 from the National Association of System Heads to really scale, enhance, and expand high-impact practices. So Heather, next slide, please. So in the grant proposal, we were only allowed to select up to 5 institutions, and Deputy Commissioner Seck and I were able to let them bend a little bit so we could have 6 institutions participating. So we weren't able to have a consortium of every campus in the MUS, but this really is a statewide initiative. So this first spring of the grant funding, these 6 campuses will be evaluating their current high impact practices and really looking at assessment with the goal to scale not only across programs, across courses, but across campuses and across the Western region and across the country. So NASHA will be looking to us to be national leaders in this work. And there's a large focus on equity, and I'll speak to that a little bit later. Next slide, please. So listed are the 6 campuses that are participating. We wanted to get a good cross-section of the institutions that are present in Montana, knowing that this work will really go beyond the boundaries of the Montana University system. We're looking to invite the private, tribal, and community colleges to also partner with this work. Next slide, please. So listed before are the target practices, and these are from a group of 10 high-impact practices that have been defined by George Koo. And these are practices that stand alone. They don't have really huge impacts on student success, retention, graduation, metacognition. But when utilized as a suite, when a student can experience 3, 4, 5, 6 of these really practices across their academic career, it's shown to have really significant results. So the 6 campuses will together focus on 1, 2, or 3 of the impact practices that are listed there. Next slide. So we have a couple different goals and objectives. Before you is the objective statement. And 2 weeks ago in Los Angeles, a team of 35 people from the 6 institutions attended a convening in Los Angeles that the Lumina Foundation paid for. And that convening was really a strategy and planning session to look at how are we going to move forward this spring, next fall, and next year to scale these practices at the institutional level as well as the statewide level. And one of the components that was missing in our initial objective was really a focus on equity. And so we went back, and through that session of 35 participants, we revised our objective statement and we had revised our goals so that we had a more equity-focused project. Next slide, please. So next, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Stacy Sherwin, who's the Director of Institutional Effectiveness at Salish Kootenai College, to talk a little bit about their philosophy and practices regarding high-impact practice.
Exquex, good morning. I'm pleased to be here to represent Salish Kootenai College. Our college is always pleased to be invited to participate in MUS initiatives, things like the American Indian Minority Achievement Council, and the Healthcare Montana initiative, and other initiatives such as ensuring the transferability of SKC courses into the MUS system. In terms of our work with the high impact practices and the NASH grant, we've had quite a team put together that are interested in this initiative. Our high impact practices were, we went through an inventory process already to see what practices were available on our campus and which ones seemed to have good outcomes, which ones were maybe needing some improvement, and frankly, which ones were floundering a bit. And we've chosen 2 to work on in particular in the next year. Service learning is a project that really resonates with our college. Dr. McDonald started our service learning project 20 years ago, working with the Montana Campus Compact, and it really resonates with our students, many of whom come to us to improve their lives of their families and their communities, and not just for future income purposes. So service learning is a strong project at our college, but sometimes in some departments isn't doing as well as we could. So we looked at models in which we could probably scale. Our STEM programs have a very good model for that, in which students take a 1-credit course called Service to the Reservation Environment, and then they do 30 hours of service, and then they come back for a 1-credit service to the Reservation Environment 2, in which they do the reflection piece, which is so important. And we talk about our 4 college-wide competencies and how those are integrated into their increasing sense of citizenship. In terms of capstone courses and projects, We've actually de-emphasized that a bit, Eric, and are looking a lot at although we are a tribal college, we have our own equity issues. And one of our equity issues is our work with American Indian young males and their retention rates and graduation rates. So we're trying to use both service learning and our freshman capstone to see what we can do to improve those rates. That's a quick overview of our work. It's much more involved than that, but I do thank you for inviting us to participate in this project, and we look forward to working with our partners. The more we can work together, the more all of our students are, the results for all of our students are enhanced. So thank you.
Next, Dr. Heidi Pasick from Great Falls College.
Good morning, members of the board. Thank you very much for having us here to fill you in on this exciting work. For us at Great Falls College MSU, this particular grant has helped us to pull together a lot of system initiatives and a lot of the high impact practices that we've been, as Stacy described, sort of dabbling in at Great Falls College MSU. And so we are very, very excited that beginning this fall of 2018, we will be implementing a block schedule and using that block schedule as a tool to create learning communities and to also help us to employ these high quality, high impact practices in everything that we do in the classroom, and also in getting our students started and really involved in their process. Our foundation for this work is that every student who comes to us will have a purpose, a plan, and a path for on-time completion. At Seamless One MSU, we were very inspired by Dr. John Gardner, who talked about how important it is for our students to come to us with a purpose. And oftentimes, students come to us, but they're not exactly sure what they want to do and where they want to go. And we're going to put in place systems to better structure those decisions. And we feel like the block scheduling will help the students to stay on target and to complete more credits and to get that focused attention from their faculty and the staff that they need to be successful. So that's our plan. We're very, very excited. And I will go ahead and turn the mic over to our next presenter.
Thank you very much. Thank you, members of the board, for this opportunity to speak to you a little bit. At the most foundational level, this grant is an opportunity to assess on our campuses the level of student engagement in HIPS, the actual impact of these high impact practices on retention and graduation with attention to equity in educational outcomes. But as you hear, beyond that, it's really the perfect opportunity to focus on enhancing the quality and the efficacy of these practices. So NASH defines high quality, high impact practices as those that involve sustained effort over an extended period of time, culminating in a scholarly product, and the process embeds reflection and metacognition. And the aim is for overarching outcomes both at the level of personal development, persistence, increased engagement, interpersonal competence, in addition to outcomes at the level of learning, critical thinking, writing proficiency. And these, in turn, lead to the outcomes of retention and completion. So our opportunity objectives: every student will experience at least one high-quality, high-impact practice each year at the university. We will develop the organizational structure that is necessary for evaluation and continuous improvement of the heights of quality, with the goal of elevating the undergraduate experience in ways that are demonstrably open to and efficacious for all students, and with that scale of all being reached not just by replication and rank growth, but through a data-informed process of differentiation and adaptation. So I would look at a couple of high-impact practices, bookends, so to speak, of our four-year experience. These are already an integral part of the curriculum in Bozeman for all students Our aim, again, is for revitalization in the face of what I wouldn't call atrophy, but really entropy that goes on in these processes. So in the first year seminar, we continue small class experience, intense focus on reading and communication with the objective of outcomes of critical thinking, creativity, communication, collaboration. But greater attention now to the onboarding process to develop a sense of belonging at the institution, a sense of resilience, a capacity to navigate the hidden curriculum, and developing a deliberately designed support network, faculty that they engage in a small class, advanced student mentoring, and the peer cohort that they have in that class. In research experience, we're focusing on students who learn by making and doing rather than by sitting and listening to lectures, which I think is actually everybody. And this is part of a capstone experience, but that features engagement with faculty in professional disciplinary mentoring. But we want to start that early. So this will culminate their experience at MSU. But starting early is critically important, and there's beautiful studies done at University of Michigan and UT Austin about profound impacts of the research experience for retention of underrepresented minorities. So looking for that starting early and extending, again, through this process of adaptation and differentiation to other types of personal, individualized projects, whether they're service projects, study abroad, and internships. So that's our philosophy, and that's where we're heading.
Thank you very much. This $150,000 will be put towards several different activities. The first is looking at leadership training and strategic planning, as well as faculty development and support, both in terms of conference attendance, where we will be holding conferences in Montana regarding high impact practices over the next year, as well as creating a repository of best practices online and incentivizing faculty to participate and putting their best practices up for really widespread dissemination and utilization, as well as developing faculty champions or expert high impact practice faculty and really elevating those who have been doing the good work over the last several years. And then the last component is really evaluation tracking, ensuring that these high impact practices are high quality, as well as determining what students are benefiting from what high impact practices and being strategic when we deploy those to different student populations. So with that, we will be open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that update. Regents, any questions regarding the update? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Panelists as well. Next on the agenda, item B. This is the Level 1 memorandum. Remember that these are delegated to OCHI for approval. They're here for your information only. Regents, do you have any questions about any of the items in the notification? Seeing none, we'll move on to information item C, the intent to plan proposals. Again, these are informational. These are just the initial intent to plan. You've had an opportunity to review those. Regents, any questions regarding the intent to plan proposals? Regent Albrecht.
Chair Sheehy, you touched on this earlier, and I just want to reiterate that while this process has brought programs to our attention before they've left the station, I continue to have a concern that once we give the initial nod, it does feel like the train then leaves the station. And so creating some kind of mechanism or protocol that allows us to take a look at these so that we are not in that mode of just allowing them to continue down the road without further review. And again, I am not a person who is into creating more bureaucracy or red tape. I just want to ensure that these programs really are meeting the needs of where we are going from a strategic perspective. So thanks for your work on this.
Thank you. And in response, I'd like to point out that under the intent to plan, these are mere intents. And so a lot of these don't go forward eventually. It'd be interesting to hear from Dr. Seck, sort of a percentage of that. But I think that, comment on this, John, but it appears to me that this intent to plan process has actually been helping with exactly the problem that you've identified. Go ahead, John.
Chair Sheehy, Regent Albrecht, absolutely. It's, as I mentioned earlier, I think it's really opened up communication and created opportunities for collaboration. And Regent Albrecht, the Chief Academic Officers and I do plan to present to the board in May a post-program review recommendation process.
Any other questions or comments regarding item C? Hearing none, the ARSA committee is adjourned.
Thank you. I would like to invite Chancellor Blackadder forward to begin a presentation on the WIRE Special Focus recommendations at Montana Tech. Chancellor Blackadder.
Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you for this opportunity. I'd like to invite the various members. We have quite a group of faculty and staff that will be coming forward here. I'll probably let them introduce themselves as they move along. In March and April of 2017, about a year ago, we started a process to form this faculty and staff group called WIRE, the Work Group for Institutional Realignment for Excellence. It's no surprise that Carrie Vath was working on that acronym. So, as you've met her today, actually her first time in Dillon, Montana.
Yeah.
But that was in anticipation of the designation of a special focus category in the Montana University system, a formal designation, I would say, and that designation was approved by you at the May meeting in 2017. You know, in many ways, that designation came about because we are a special focus kind of institution, and it was more as much of a recognition as it was a designation. You know, as we were formed in the Enabling Act, like the state of Montana in 1889, and became the Montana State School of Mines at that point, a long heritage in the natural resource industries. You know, this group, I'm really proud to be part of it in some ways. It has embraced the call from the commissioner and from this board to further define. We have made presentations at the November meeting, and this is a chance for us to update on what I would call semi-final recommendations that are coming forward. You know, our international reputation has required us to visit with a number of constituents, and they have done that, and you will see that here. This is about renewal, reflection, and honesty of our programs. You know, as we've looked at what we want to be in the coming years, you know, the group has really done an excellent job as they've met weekly for multiple hours over the last year or so. We have a rule in that group that you take your title off when you come into the room, and it has proved very effective. I will say that this presentation has also been given at multiple campus-wide meetings as well. So this is not news to our campus in any way. So with that, I will let them begin their presentation. I'll step aside.
All righty, next slide, please. Well, good morning, board. Nice to chat with you all again here today. As Dr. Blackadder mentioned, a big part of the WIRE group was to listen. So we met with every different academic department, the staffing groups, IABs, our alumni to get feedback. We have done surveys. We wanted to get the idea of what do people really think on our campus community related to a special focus designation. I had the, I would say, privilege of going to probably 80% of our departments to hear firsthand their thoughts, and that really helped me in framing my opinions related to how we wanted to move forward. But again, highlighting that this group was really about listening first, taking that information, processing, and then the members really trying to create a vision. Next slide, please. So with this vision, we came with officially 3 kind of draft recommendations. There's a hidden 4th one in there that you'll see in a few slides. And we're going to go through each one of these in detail. Next slide. So with recommendation 1, this was really trying to identify how the board said, you know what, Montana Tech, you're a little bit different than a typical 4-year comprehensive. You are this special focus. What does that mean? And when we talked to our different constituents and stakeholders, we came up with the idea that, you know what, we are a science and engineering institution. Now, what this, I think at first kind of struggled with some of our department members, because they thought, well, what if I'm not science and engineering? And what we thought is that we really want to challenge our departments to say, how are you anchored in the sciences? So our business department, how are you anchored in the sciences? And one of their responses, well, with our land management. Exactly, this is beautiful, right? And our professional and technical communications, how are you anchored into the sciences? Well, they have a health and science communication focus. And so really taking those to say, we're not leaving anyone behind, but get on board and help this be a driver to not only improve your programs, but to, again, think about the new possibilities with this designation. What this also means as an institution is we want to really look at the way that we are recruiting students as this premier science and engineering institution. And what does that mean for our recruitment practices, as well as our admissions processes? And one of the things that we've talked about is maybe we don't need test scores, right? Maybe we're looking at grit. And that's where we find most of our students who have the greatest retention rate, is that you can start in a developmental math, but you will complete an engineering degree. And so that grit and that determination is something that is critical with our students, and that work ethic, which translates into our placement with our students. And so really looking at those processes to align with being, again, a special focus engineering with science and within science and engineering.
Next slide, please. So my name's Dan Trudanowski. I'm the Dean of the School of Mines and Engineering, and I appreciate being here. So I'm going to talk about research. Our goal is to increase our culture in research. We recognize that vibrant and successful science and engineering institutions are technology innovators, and that's typically manifested in large part through research. Innovation is the seat of economic development. I think a lot of people understand that. I want to share three what I view as facts with you. Montana Tech has a long history in undergraduate education in natural resources and energy, over 100 years. That has resulted in deep capability in those areas, not just in our faculty, but in our alumni base and in private industry. We have major CEOs of major corporations are our alums in these areas. We have developed competitive research in pocket areas, primarily served and sustained by our Masters of Science degrees. Only recently did you allow us to participate in the PhD, the material science program. The second fact, engineering education is experiencing a slow but steady increase in the required education to practice at the professional level. The national board, which governs a professional licensure in engineering, has recommended that the master's degree become the educational requirement for professional engineering. And there are other benchmarks I could talk about. But what is happening is the master's degree is becoming a professional education degree as opposed to a research degree. For example, the explosion of Masters of Engineering programs across the nation are serving this need. The third fact that I'd like to share with you, the PhD degree is now the gold standard for operating research programs in the science and engineering fields, with the Masters of Science being a mid-level off-ramp. It'll soon become nearly impossible to operate competitive research without access to PhD programs. As the Dean of the School of Mines and Engineering, this is my largest concern for the future of our programs. The PhD programs, along with the faculty who drive those, are the lifeblood of research programs. And research programs can be, I would claim, profitable. And I'll give you just one anecdotal example in the sciences and engineering. The PhD material science program is a collaborative program across the system. Has 31 PhD candidates in it right now. 18 of those are housed on our campus. And over the last 3 years, we've secured $10 million in federal research dollars. These are research dollars that come into Montana that otherwise wouldn't. And we would not have secured those without a PhD program. It's opening doors for us to compete for grants that we can't today compete in a lot of areas. So with those three facts, I want to state basically our goals up here. Number one, have several mission-focused research degrees, including PhD programs. We feel that PhD in material science represents an excellent model for cross-campus collaboration. We embrace it. We're too small to run PhD programs by ourselves, and I would argue Montana is a low population state. I would argue that we need to really embrace collaboration at that level, and we feel strongly about that. Number two is our second goal is to create high-quality professional graduate programs. We don't have many of those at Montana Tech right now, but we do know how to do it. Our online master's program in industrial hygiene is rated as one of the best in the United States, not including cost. A lot of our rankings associate cost in the model, but just flat out quality. Of the 100 students in the program, 3 are in Montana. The rest are scattered across the world. We know how to do that. We envision more of those programs to serve our constituents and our alumni. The intent to plan has a Master of Engineering proposal. That's an example of a program that would do that. Third goal, develop research centers to coordinate, focus, and help fund our research activities. Our intent is to have our centers grounded in key applied areas consistent with our mission, and to have industry to be key components of our research centers. We feel we've had extensive experience with one research center on our campus, and it has sustained us to do in the material science and metallurgy area very competitive, nationally competitive research. With that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Risser.
Madam Chair, members of the board, commissioner, deputy commissioners, campus CEOs, Rob. I'm Dr. Scott Risser. I'm going to be talking about our third recommendation, so I guess I should say slide, please. A very wise person recently wrote, "We face the important task of preparing students for an uncertain, dynamic, and complex world, one undergoing a breathtaking rate of technological change. Our graduates must be creative, agile, lifelong learners who can work across disciplines and solve complex issues. We must prepare them not just for their first job, but for a multifaceted and nonlinear career." Very smart person. So this is really the role of the Montana, what's that? Oh no, somebody's sitting at this table, but not me. So the role of the Montana University system, I mean, this is what their role is. Montana Tech's role in the state is to meet the needs of a changing society through science and engineering, to educate our students deeply in science and engineering. But to do that, though, our students must also recognize the value of courses and coursework outside of science and engineering, the value and power of understanding rhetoric, history, philosophy, and political science. That empirical research from business and social psychology and organizational psychology show that the most effective, ethical, and well-communicated solutions come from diverse groups of people, ideas, and perspectives. So this work group recommends that our students engage in interdisciplinary team-based inquiry, and that they engage, that we provide that inquiry their very first year through our general education program. This work group will engage our faculty, deans, and provosts to create, in the words of our chancellor, a compelling interdisciplinary experience. I love the word compelling. We also need to be mindful of where our students are going. In their 2018 Jobs Outlook survey, the National Association of Colleges and Employers found once again that a skills gap exists for recent college graduates, particularly in the areas of, and this is a painful list to read, professionalism, communication, critical thinking, and leadership. Probably most problematic about this, however, was that the surveyed college seniors, more than 4,000 of them across the United States, on average believed that they possessed all these skills in spades. Many Montana Tech programs actively engage industry and graduate school partners to foster these needed skills, but some of the most effective means of lessening this gap actually come from undergraduate research programs and internship programs. So we are recommending to our campus that all of our programs integrate forms of research and/or internships. Programs like professional technical communication, chemistry, and network technology already have incorporated these experiences into their curricula. We would like to continue this conversation with the entire campus to ensure that our students are truly prepared for when they leave Montana Tech. This last recommendation concerns our capstone courses. And I actually think an emeritus professor of mechanical engineering at Michigan Tech said this best about capstone experiences. It's not their last class, it's their first job. Programs like mining engineering, biological sciences, electrical engineering already give their senior students the experience of working with a sponsor, a program officer, or a client, solving real-world problems. But we need to do this on a larger campus-wide scale, recognizing that all of our students need this experience of solving hands-on problems, and working for and alongside sponsors like the Bureau of Land Management, the Department of Energy, Northwestern Energy, the Butte Silver Bow Chamber of Commerce, and the NIH. So our final recommendation on this particular slide is that all of our students have the sponsored capstone experience. Thank you. Dr. Southergill.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Next slide, please. It's my pleasure to provide some commentary and context on what my colleague, Dr. Bath, mentioned was our non-recommendation recommendation, so much more of, I think, a status report than anything else. During the past year, WIRE has discussed the role of two-year education in our special focus institution. We have considered various models which may, to varying degrees, further integrate or develop autonomy for Highlands College as a standalone two-year community college. WIRE has not reached a consensus and plans to continue to study the matter. However, especially in the contexts of our other recommendations, about which you just heard more, we began to realize that the question requires examining the structure and future relationships of Montana Tech's other academic colleges. Our recommendation, as it comes into focus, will be informed by the results of the reorganization study currently being conducted by the Office of the Commissioner of Higher Education, Montana Tech's program prioritization process, and with input from the valued Highlands community. Our goal remains to suggest a system that effectively and efficiently leverages our intellectual and professional capital, that is to say, our highly talented staff and faculty, for the betterment of our students, our communities, and industries, consistently with our special focus and historical mission. Thank you very much.
Next slide, please. I'm Dr. Hilary Risser. I'm the head of the Mathematical Sciences Department at Montana Tech and the co-chair of the WIRE committee. You can go ahead and advance through these if you'd like. The work group and the rest of the Montana Tech community are very excited by the opportunities presented by our special focus designation. We recognize that this designation has benefits not only for us as a campus, but also for the state as a whole. Growing into this new role is not going to be without its challenges. It's become clear to us that there are going to have to be some institutional changes that we go through in order to fulfill this very, very ambitious vision. We need to efficiently use both our financial and our human resources. We're currently going through the program prioritization process, and we're hoping that some efficiencies are going to be found there. We also want Montana Tech to continue to seek out efficiencies by collaborating with other institutions within the MUS system to share services, instructional resources, and programs when possible. We may also need to collaborate with institutions outside the state. We have some unique programs like mining and petroleum engineering where there aren't really any collaborators within the state of Montana. These efficiencies in that collaboration are very, very important because we want to ensure that we can fulfill our new role without preventing Montana students from being able to afford the education at Montana Tech. One of the challenges that was brought to our attention very early in the process is our institutional name. So our current name brings to mind the idea of a regional comprehensive institution or a branch campus and doesn't really communicate to constituencies outside the state, in particular, our unique role. The original Missouri School of Mines encountered a very similar issue. They went through a reorganization in the state of Missouri. They were renamed the University of Missouri-Rolla. They went through a renaming process because they found that that name, the University of Missouri-Rolla, made them seem to others outside the state as if they were a branch campus. Did not recognize that long, proud institutional history as the Missouri School of Mines. They eventually were renamed Missouri S&T to make clear that role within the system to those outside the state. While I think we in the state of Montana know exactly what Montana Tech is, many of us that have come to Montana from outside the state, when we took our jobs at Montana Tech, they asked if we were teaching at a two-year college or a branch campus. And that is perpetuated when we try and recruit students from out of state. We've had some real challenges in recruitment because of that institutional name. Before we close, I'd really like to thank our campus for constructively engaging with us over the past 8 months. Darwin said it's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. But change is very hard. I've been really humbled when we've gone across campus. by conversations where departments and programs looked beyond their own interests to how Montana Tech could evolve in this role and how we could better serve the state of Montana. Next slide, please. I'd also like to personally thank the other 12 members of this work group. If you're here in the audience, would you please stand? It has been one of the highest honors of my professional career to work with these 12 individuals. Their dedication to our institution and their thoughtfulness have been an inspiration to me. We thank you for your time and attention, and we stand ready for questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Questions from members of the board? Regent Greenfield?
Thank you. My question is for Dean Bath. So going up to that first or second slide, rather, the feedback received, I'm curious to know, both in this wire process and then the ongoing program prioritization process, what involvement students and input students have given to this.
Yes, so at this stage, I would say the student input has been very limited and informal, primarily because as the group formed in April, students went away for the summer, and so we couldn't really find a time to get with them, so we focused on non-academic departments in the summer. Then the fall term started, and we knew we had deadlines, so we started with our faculty-led departments in the fall. Now, the big thing for us at first was to figure out a unified voice so that we could figure out what our faculty and our staff wanted so that we weren't bickering. And that way, when we would go to students to see what is their input, we already kind of had that we're all on the same page and moving forward. What do you students feel, right? And so the informal conversations that we've had with students have all been very positive, but we are looking forward, after we did this informational session here, to now opening it up to students so that we can kind of get their input on what they're thinking that we need to do.
Well, thank you. I'm heartened to hear that the students will have some opportunity to be involved in this process. I think that's critically important, and I think so far their voice has been missed in this, unfortunately. I'm supportive of this project. I would just highly emphasize that starting at the beginning with a student voice is important, and here's why I think that is. That students are the only constituency group in the university system that can do everyone else's jobs. They're taxpayers, they're paying tuition. In the case of graduate students, they're alumni, they teach, they do research, they're employees, they're administrators in some cases. I just encourage you that they might have some valuable insights for you, and I'm hopeful to hear that those perspectives will be included. So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Regent Sheehy?
Two things. Number one, for the gentleman at the far end of the table, I'm sorry, I missed your name.
Dr. Risser.
Dr. Scott Risser.
Dr. Rizzu. Who's the quote?
Oh, I don't know if he or she wants to out themselves as the quoter of that, but if he or she would like to raise their hand if they remember writing it.
I thought so. Okay, thank you. And then I wondered, with respect to your presentation, have you talked about rebranding and the costs of that?
We don't want to rebrand. Our branded name, Montana Tech, is a well-known brand. Rebranding would be very expensive and costly. We had done a name survey. We'd come up with a bunch of different names that left Montana Tech as the branded name, but like Virginia Tech is the Virginia Institute of Technology. But everybody calls it, coming from the South, Virginia Tech. Nobody refers to it by that name. My favorite was the Montana University of Science and Technology, where we could still remain Montana Tech, but we had the acronym of MUST.
I don't know who thought of that one.
And I'll point at Dr. Bath and say she came up with that very, very clever acronym. However, I will say when we surveyed, and we did survey alumni, we surveyed the campus community, faculty, staff, there really didn't appear to be a really universal name that everybody loved. Everybody agreed our brand should remain Montana Tech, and we are very cognizant of the costs of rebranding at this point.
Regent Nystuen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm all in on this. I think there's strong consensus from the board. I'm wondering, how could we put wind in your sails and help you go forward here from the Commissioner's Office, Board of Regents, as you look forward here? What do you need from us? What's on your wish list?
Go ahead.
That's encouraging to hear you ask that.
Well, I'm assuming
that. So, of course, our three recommendations we feel strongly about, but I feel as a as a member of this group and a co-chair, the fourth recommendation is very difficult for us. And I think I said this when you guys were in Butte. We need, and I think you're going through the processes, we need feedback as to the future of two-year education and the models that are consistent with your goals and understanding that. So I think that's where we need help. We're really struggling with Highlands and the Butte community and being a special focus. You know, it's a difficult, there's a lot, when you really get into the weeds of it, it's a very hard question. And dialogue on that would really help us. So giving us people to talk to, recommendations, things like that would be great.
We also, I'm sure, will be putting forth different things. The name change may be one of those. And we would appreciate support in those issues because there are some very big challenges in this evolution. You know, we've been a regional comprehensive since the reorg, essentially, and that's going to require some institutional changes. And we've talked about how that may change how we do leadership, how we organize our colleges. There may be lots of things that will come across your desk as we get further along. We are very committed to the fact that change should come from the bottom up. My research deals with teacher education and particularly teacher communities. In K-12, a lot of times reform is done to teachers, not by teachers. We want our campus community to be really fully engaged in that process, and so our recommendations we've made at this point are very, very broad. For example, we've said we think we should consider non-cognitive measures like grit or mindset or whatever you want to call it, but we haven't said how that will happen because we want the people that are most involved with admissions and recruitment to be helping us to make those decisions. That will happen at a later point, and those recommendations may be coming forward at some later point for you.
And lastly, we very much appreciate the reminder from our own Regents of how important it is to talk to students and include them in this process beyond just the informal way.
What is your plan for integrating business and industry into this?
We've participated with the IABs. We sent out a survey. We've talked to a number of IABs. I've met personally with our nursing IAB twice. I also met with our civil engineering IAB. We've done surveys. I was disappointed that more of the IAB members didn't fill out the surveys. The response rate was really low, unfortunately. But we have engaged with those industry partners in order to ensure that we're going in the right direction.
And what do you see as next steps?
You want to take this one?
Well, so one of the big next steps on my agenda is actually the students. And so I think that once we have we're able to present this vision with all of you is to really start engaging our student groups. So our student government, I help work with them, and so we will be bringing this forward at their next meeting. And again, slightly informal, so starting with the student leadership and then branching out. They'll be having their elections soon, and so working with that engagement with our student body is, I would say, in the immediate future, as in this month and in April.
And do you have an overall timeline for sort of how you move forward?
So we have a 1, 5, and 10-year timeline right now, and so we've kind of mapped out. Did I do the right year?
Yes, 1, 5, and 10.
Yeah, 1, 5, and 10. So we have a 1, 5, and 10-year kind of outline in each of the steps that we need to take within this first year, the next 5 years, what we hope to accomplish, and 10 years. So when we talk about our WIRE group, we see this as a long-term planning group with program prioritization being at a quicker, like 1, 2, 3 time scale, but the two working in sync. So both Dan and I are on the program prioritization committee as well, and we're able to act as liaisons between the two committees to make sure we're working together for common goals.
Regent Greenfield?
One comment to follow up on that last. I'm heartened to hear as well about the WIRE focus group being conducted before the program prioritization. I haven't gone through a program prioritization process. I wish I could have had that. The other piece I was curious about is under recommendation 2 on the research centers. What would be envisioned for maybe more formalizing some of the research that's already being done? And would that be collaborative across the system as well? I know you mentioned that with the professional graduate degree goal that would probably end up being having some collaborative component, but I was curious if the research centers did as well.
Yes, yeah. The goal of a research center is to focus your research at your institution as well as your collaborations on specific problems, as opposed to all your faculty running in different directions doing their own thing. So we have excellence in energy and excellence in the natural resources areas, and certainly those are kinds of the areas that we would tend to look at for research centers. I don't see us coming forward with 20 research centers. I think we're going to have 3 or 4 highly focused research centers and really have an industry partner in them to keep them highly applied and focused on real world problems. But what they are, we don't know. That's got to come through the faculty. That's a process that'll take a few. That's one of the 5-year goals, is to establish 3 to 4 solid research centers that are funded by competitive dollars, national or federal dollars and private industry.
That's really good to hear, and doing a comprehensive review at an institution's overall offering is one of those things we reviewed as research centers, and noticing where they tended to start to struggle the most is when their mission became too broad. So that narrow focus is I think, especially critical to their success. So good luck and good work so far.
Thank you. Commissioner Christian?
Yeah, I just want to extend my thanks to the group. I think it's incredible work that has happened. Chancellor Blackketter, have you done in this presentation, you've introduced the topic and got out of the way, and I think that's probably the right approach. But I thank you. No, I seriously, I want to thank you for your leadership in helping to move this forward and truly empowering those on your campus to do this work. I think it's happening at the right level, and I think, I do hear Bill, and I'll hear his echoes for a long time. We need to think about things and move forward, and this group really embodies that in every sense of the word. As things have moved in my time around this board and in this role, it's moving rapidly. It was less than a year ago that we've even considered and ultimately approved Tech as a special focus institution. They've grabbed that and embraced it with open arms. We have some unanswered questions, and some of that Ochi needs to help with as well, but it's truly moving in the right direction, and I think it will do what we all set out to do each and every day, and that's serve students in Montana and across the country. And so I truly just congratulate the WIRE group and thank you for your dedication. The time that you put in this is amazing, and we really appreciate it, and certainly can see the efforts of all those hours, so thank you.
May I have just
Chancellor?
one final? Yeah, thank you. Specifically, Regent Nystuen, to your questions, we would look for an agenda item in the future that would include things like the name change, okay? Recommendations that would come from our campus for a name change. We would look at our graduate programs, and we have one on the level 1, which is our Masters of Engineering program, and some other programs related to that. We would look at insight and maybe even policy or recommendations around collaboration within the system. We will have one of the areas that Dr. Scott Risser mentioned was with our gen ed, and that will be an interesting discussion on our campus as we look how that goes around there. So you will maybe see some. And I forget, Hillary, there's been some discussion around the campus. Passport. That conversation we probably want to be involved in because our general ed requirements may look significantly different. That's probably more out past a year. Those other items are probably within the shorter term. And then, of course, Scott mentioned guidance on the 2-year organization within the Montana University system. So that's kind of a brief summary, I would say, of at least 4. I would look to the group.
Yeah, that's probably in the 1 year, 5 year, short term.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? This is exciting as we look to the future for Montana Tech. Thank you all for your efforts. At this point in the agenda, we have already covered our action items, so we are at a point in the agenda where I would welcome public comment.
Madam Chair, members of the board, my name is Brenna Love. I'm the president of the Montana Associated Students. I have 2 comments that I want to make, and I understand that we are running behind schedule, so I will make them brief. I wanted to first speak a little bit about the support of and engagement in from students, the 6 mil levy. So it's something that my council, MASS, has been talking about for 2 years now. So last year's council passed a resolution in support of the 6 mil levy, and this year's council has been talking about what sort of engagement we can have on each campus all year, and we'll be seeing a resolution in the next couple of weeks. So I just wanted to remind you all that the students are talking about it and ready to engage their peers on each campus. The second comment that I wanted to make was a sincere expression of our deep gratitude from myself and all the students to Deputy Commissioner Seck, as well as, though he has left, Regent Johnstone. But yeah, I just wanted to say that we really appreciate the service that everyone in this room, not just those that are leaving, but everyone in this room makes to not only the state, not only the university system, but specifically your service to the students of Montana. We're really appreciative of that. I understand that sitting in this room, it might be a little bit hard to think about a specific student and to kind of feel maybe a little bit removed from the classroom specifically, but there are 35 students here right now from 8 different schools. We're here, we know the work you do, we're appreciative of the work that you do, and I just really wanted to say thank you to all of you for that.
Thank you, Brenna. Further public comment? Additional public comment? Seeing no further public comment, and I see we have executive session on here, but it has been determined that we do not have a need for executive session. So I will go ahead and move to adjourn today's meeting. Thank you all for being here, participating, and helping us to make our Montana University system that much greater. And thank you, Chancellor Weatherby, for your fantastic hospitality.